Hello and welcome to Tulsa Times. I'm Angela Rosecrans. 2010 marks the 65th anniversary of the end of World War II. On this special edition, we're dedicating the next half hour to honor our Oklahoma war heroes. We'll see how the historic Circle Cinema in Tulsa recognized the anniversary with a special series of documentaries about the war. Also, we'll introduce you to a man who is spending his retirement days preserving the memories of all the sacrifices that were made for our freedoms. All of that coming up, but first. About 100 World War II veterans recently completed another mission, the inaugural Oklahoma Honor Flight to Washington, D.C. These members of the greatest generation, many in wheelchairs and all in their 80s and 90s, had the opportunity to visit and reflect at memorials dedicated in their honor, including the National World War II Memorial. Organizers say it's all part of the Honor Flight Network's mission of sending as many war heroes as possible to the nation's capital.
16 million in uniform, less than 3 left. We've missed the boat on 13 million, but it's not too late to say thank you to those that still remain. And so we're driven, literally, to get to as many of these World War II veterans as we can before it's too late.
Along with photojournalist Edwin Wilson, I had the honor and privilege of accompanying that group to Washington for the day. Organizers for the trip did not spare one detail to make it an experience that truly was an honor flight.
The Oklahoma Honor Flight experience does what its name implies. That is, to show honor for the veterans of World War II. It began with a welcoming ceremony the night before a charter jet takes off for Washington, D.C.
Veterans, your generation paid a steep price to preserve liberty. May we be good stewards and custodians of that liberty and be ready to defend it against all enemies, both foreign and domestic.
The Reed Center in Midwest City was filled with family and friends there to send off their loved ones on their next mission, the inaugural Oklahoma Honor Flight. Former Governor George Nye was part of the crowd of veterans, along with Pearl Harbor survivors and other war heroes. There was a presentation of the colors by the governor's honor guard.
Honor guard, halt! Left, face! Breathe in, hoop!
And veterans from every corner of the state were recognized one by one.
James Alberti from Salina.
Before the ceremony, the veterans and their families got to know each other and shared old war stories, bringing back old memories to the forefront.
Lost some good friends. So, you know, sorry, but I remember them. And I don't know what you can say. I was just more fortunate, I guess. So, you know, but life goes on, and we won. We paid a price. It's not so bad now.
David Barton was an Air Force pilot that flew 62 missions in the Second World War.
How did you get your Purple Heart? How did you get that medal?
Well, I was a B-26 pilot, the Martin Marauder, and Christmas Eve of 1944, we flew a raid on Breisach, Germany. And I think they won that day. We lost our planes, so forth, and I had a wound to the left hand, arm, and so forth on the mission.
Woody Hayes was not too far away during that time, but on a different mission. He was part of the Navy Seabees and remembers all too well the images of war.
Well, what I remember most is whenever I got to going into London, it looked like a big brickyard. Germans had just got through bombing it all over then. and they hadn't got it really cleaned up at all. And that, I remember that, and then even this little town, it wasn't a small place, but it was small beside of London. All the places looked like that. Germans just come over and bombed whatever they wanted to. But about the time we got over there, well, our Air Force got busy, and Britain too, and kind of shut them down.
Hayes and the other 97 veterans will now get to visit the memorials in our nation's capital, dedicated in their honor for their service in World War II, an experience they are all looking forward to.
I'm hoping to see what they're going to take us over to see, and then I'm going to see my great-granddaughter and her husband.
In our next report, you'll see how he did get to meet with his granddaughter at the World War II Memorial and the whirlwind day that is ahead for these aging war heroes.
We'll get back to the honor flight now. A special night at the Circle Cinema Theater in Tulsa. World War II veterans recounting real-life stories of war and a replay of the PBS special Victory in the Pacific. It was all about history played out in a historic movie theater.
The historic Circle Cinema had a full house for the showing of An American Experience, a PBS special that recently aired on OETA.
In the annals of warfare, the final year of the war in the Pacific stands alone. It would be as brutal as war gets, a death embrace between America demanding unconditional surrender and Japan desperate to resist.
About 200 people came out to watch the program Victory in the Pacific. The movie was part of a series at the theater commemorating the 65th anniversary of the end of World War II. And like OETA, Circle Cinema is an organization dedicated to enriching the lives of Oklahomans through outreach initiatives and education.
And we're all about education and just increasing people's consciousness about what's happened in the world. We're a historic movie theater, so we're all about history too. So this was a very special opportunity for us to really recognize the veterans and to get them here in person to give their oral histories.
Navy Captain Joe Henson was one of the war veterans to share his sea stories with the crowd after the movie showing. His most vivid memories are of the kamikazes that he witnessed up close and firsthand.
When I saw those Japanese boys, 17, 18, 19 years old, just had enough hours to take that plane off and tell them to fly it into a ship. When I'd see them go over that ship and hit the water, I felt sorry for them. I said, my God, if I can't imagine anything worse way to die than that, because you failed. You failed and you're dying anyway. You're not, and taking a plane with you and going to the bottom of the ocean right there.
But many kamikazes did succeed on their missions. Don Walker was on a ship that was hit by a kamikaze, killing 98 Navy personnel. He shows me the book that was written by a lieutenant on that ship that documented their contribution to the war.
This is what our squadrons on board the ship did. You can see here this Air Group 30 shot down most of the Japanese people. And another interesting thing about this Air Group 30, 4 of the pilots on here, the TBM pilots, helped sink or sunk. Our ship and our squadron got credit for sinking one of Japan's largest aircraft carriers, Haiyu.
The Circle Cinema had such a positive response from the documentary series, they are considering showing them again in the near future.
Remembering and honoring our veterans has become a passion for an Oklahoma man. Keith Myers has spent the last 3 decades collecting and preserving war memorabilia to teach others about the sacrifices veterans have made to protect our freedom.
Keith Myers has done this enough times, he has it down to a science. After he unloads all of the items, he carefully puts each one up on display. This is his traveling military museum. Over the years, he has collected uniforms, pictures, and other historical artifacts.
There are things on display today from Iwo Jima, Pearl Harbor, a POW, a gentleman who was in the Army Air Corps who was killed in action. And these articles, for him, they were headed to the dump because the family didn't want them, and I was alerted to it and I was able to acquire them. I have things on my dad, some paratrooper. I have some things from D-Day, a piece of parachute from Normandy D-Day. A buddy of mine who was with the 82nd Airborne, he used that parachute, or the total parachute, when he jumped down into D-Day, Normandy at St. Mary-Glise. So yeah, I'm fortunate I have a lot of historical items.
Myers takes his collection to schools, civic clubs, libraries, veterans organizations, and retirement homes like this one. All of the programs are free of charge. He's retired, and it's something he enjoys doing. And
one thing on the side that I really enjoy is when I do the big public displays. There will always be somebody that will come by and say, "Oh, I worked with," so we'll say Joe Brown. I worked with Joe Brown, and there's no way Joe Brown ever fit in that uniform. So we'll have a little laugh about it, and I'll say, "Could I take your name and phone number, and I'll call Joe Brown and tell him what you thought about his not being able to wear the uniform." So I hear interesting stories, and when I come to retirement centers like this, I'll have widows come up and tell me about their husbands or brothers and so forth. So I hear some great stories. So that's the reward I have, is just hearing some wonderful things that people have to say about the display.
As part of his presentation at this retirement home, he tells his audience that many times he'll get to teach younger generations about history through the stories behind each item.
They'll see a picture of an older gentleman and they'll say, "Gosh, he looks like my granddad." And I'll explain to them, well, our soldiers are real people like everybody else, except they have served in the military, and they can become fathers, grandparents, and so forth.
He started this hobby 3 decades ago as a favor to a friend and has never looked back.
I am not a veteran, and I started in 1980 as a collector of these things. And then in 1984, a friend of mine who was a disabled American veteran Marine from a Korean War, asked me if I would do some programs on behalf of DAV leading up to the 40th anniversary of the celebration of Normandy and D-Day. So I said, okay, sure. And then teachers started asking me, and now today is the 352nd program since 1984.
He says he's fortunate to have so many historical items with names and stories to go behind them, because his ultimate goal through these programs is to show the faces that fought for America's freedom.
What I'm hoping the people learn is that we do need to remember our veterans. We also need to reflect upon the sacrifices that they have made in defense of freedom. If I can do anything about what I'm doing, I'm saving things from going to the trash can and being lost, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Thousands of World War II veterans are dying every day. That's why it's so important for honor flights to take at least some to the nation's capital so they can see the memorials dedicated to their service. About 100 World War II veterans boarded a charter jet for a flight to Washington, D.C. It was the first Oklahoma honor flight.
Hours before sunrise, World War II veterans, many of them in wheelchairs and in their 80s and 90s, were preparing for what would turn out to be a very long day. Before boarding the buses, many of them were taking pictures to document the moment.
I guess we better get on the bus.
They made the short bus ride to Will Rogers World Airport, where a chartered plane awaited their arrival. For many of the veterans, it was a challenge making it up the flight of stairs to the aircraft, and those in wheelchairs had to be lifted up into the plane.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. There you go.
Once on the ground, the World War II veterans had a welcoming party awaiting them.
As you leave the aircraft, we have a number of active duty troops who are deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan. They're in a jetway. They want to shake your hands as you come off the aircraft.
Good morning. Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
How are you? Did you have a good flight?
Yes, a very good flight.
The first stop of the day was the National World War II Memorial. The The rain didn't seem to dampen the mood for this experience as they made their way through the grand entrance. Some veterans met with family members that live in D.C. who stopped by for a visit. Woody Hayes finally caught up with his great-granddaughter.
Do you want to walk up this way? Have you seen the Oklahoma?
Other veterans also gathered around the Oklahoma pillar to take their pictures, some of them reminiscing about the war. Rufus Staggs was in the Air Force and is lucky to be alive. He had many close calls and thought he would never make it back home from battle.
And a few narrow escapes in Italy. I was working one day in a B-17 loaded with bombs. One bomb went off and blew up the bomber, and I was about 150 yards away, and it felt like, you know, I was going to shake to pieces. So that started this hearing loss.
He, like many of the others, are grateful for the opportunity to visit and reflect at the memorials dedicated in their honor.
It brings back memories, sort of, and I'm happy that I can come up here and be with other people who were in the same war.
It just brings back a lot of memories of people. The fact that I registered for the draft in Minnesota, enlisted in the Marine Corps in Iowa, and now I get to bring here by living in Oklahoma.
Despite his deteriorating health, Marine Corporal Roy Scott wanted to make the trip anyway with his daughter by his side. The 92-year-old is an Iwo Jima survivor and saw the historic event of the flag go up while he was on the island.
What was it like seeing the flag go up on Iwo Jima?
It was a great big sigh of relief saying that we had the high ground and there was a possibility of getting it. Up until then, I didn't think we were going to make it.
The memorial dedicated to that battle was the next stop on the tour. Herman Weiss was also on that patch of volcanic rock, sharing the same experiences during that time.
You have a lot of memories that you wish you didn't have, but in all, it's the boys that didn't come back, the young kids and people like that. It's what's so sad.
Weiss can remember the gunfire and the sacrifices that were made, and standing here today is very emotional.
It makes you sad. Sometimes you want to cry, and I do. And it's just, I hope the people in this country realize what they've got. We don't have long here on this earth, and it's sad, but true.
More than 300,000 people are buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Veterans from the American Revolution through the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are buried here. 98 Oklahoma World War II veterans visited the site and witnessed a ceremony that honors the sacrifices made by soldiers unknown. As hundreds of visitors watch in the rain, there is complete silence as a show of respect.
Out. Out.
3 unknown servicemen are buried at the Tomb of the Unknowns. The area is guarded by the U.S. Army 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. For some of these veterans, this is the first time to watch the changing of the guard. While at Arlington, former Governor Frank Keating stopped by to take pictures with the veterans, along with former Governor George Nye, who was part of the honor flight. After a long day, the plane ride home was a time of reflection for many of the veterans.
The first monument was the World War II, and the rain contributed to the general quietness of the place. And it's a little bit awe-inspiring. So many people sacrificed their lives for that.
I've been most impressed in bringing and talking to fellow veterans and some of their experiences, you know. Normally, they're not willing to talk about that to sort of the general public. I saw the general public, but they will talk about it to each other. And so they're very forthcoming, I found, and just many conversations I had on the trip.
It just brought back so many memories, bad memories of friends that didn't come back and that sort of thing. I was really down. That's just the way it struck me. But life goes on, and it's been a wonderful day.
This has been the most spectacular thing that I have seen or participated in many, many years. Almost as many as those days out there in the South Pacific. And I'm just thrilled. I feel blessed because I have been a part of this activity.
The honor flight would not be complete without a mail call for the veterans. Envelopes were handed out with letters from elementary students and state representatives. It was all an experience Pepper Blackwell says will not be forgotten.
It's never happened before, and I'm afraid at my age it may not happen again.
When they came off the plane, another welcoming party was waiting. Men and women in uniform greeted the veterans, family and friends nearby.
Welcome home.
As husbands reunited with their brides, it felt much longer than just one day since departure on the honor flight. Jim Dutton says it was a day filled with shared memories.
We met guys that, I'd never seen before, and they had experiences that they'd tell me about, and I had experiences, and everybody wanted to know if I got any trouble when I was looking for mines in minefields, and I said, only if I hit one with my bayonet did I get in trouble, and then I had to be careful.
Organizers have already started planning for the second honor flight in October. Hundreds more World War II veterans are already on the waiting list.
And that's all the time we have left on this edition of Tulsa Times. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this special edition dedicated to Oklahoma's war heroes. You can find out more about these stories and other reports on our website at OETA.tv. That website again is OETA.tv. If you have any questions about the show, you can contact us at Tulsa Times at OETA.tv, Tulsa Times at OETA.tv, or give us a call at the station, 918-838-7611. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Angela Rosecrans. Before we go, we'd like to leave you with a compilation of the honor flight through the eyes of photojournalist Edwin Wilson. Until next time, bye-bye.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
How are you? Did you have a good flight?
Yes, a very good flight.